Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Indie Game Movement, the podcast that talks about the marketing and business of indie games. I'm Andrew Pappas. I'm going to be your host today, and this is a two-part episode where we're going to be talking about unlocking your indie studio advantage over AAA giants. So, as an indie studio, comparing and despairing can be demoralizing, especially when comparing yourself to a AAA studio. However, changing your mindset can make all the difference in how your game studio can outplay and one-up even the biggest AAA brands. Today, we're going to uncover huge advantages indies have over AAA studios, valuable lessons each side can learn from the other, and unveil how you can combine these strategies and processes, turning your studio into an indie game powerhouse. So that's what we're going to be talking about right here today on Indie Game Movement. Hey, everybody, and we're back. And today with us, I have Konstantin Suvorov.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Hi,
guys. How are you doing today,
Thanks,
Konstantin?
I'm good. Trying to survive the hot weather, the summer, but I'm surviving.
Yeah, from what I understand, you guys, meaning a lot of people in, Western and even Eastern Europe have been getting a lot of heat. I'm in the Northeast in the U.S., and it's been pretty mild, but slowly we've been getting some more heat. So glad that you're, at least sounds like you're trying to cope and do what you can to keep cool over there and everyone else as well. But it is summer after all for us, so to be expected.
But I mean, it has its benefits, its downsides. I try to concentrate more on the benefits.
Yeah, that's the right attitude. So at any rate, for those of you who aren't familiar with Konstantin, he is a project manager at BXDXO, which is a game marketing agency. And real quick, I mean, they've worked on projects for Bethesda, PUBG, Battlegrounds, and just to name a couple, but there's so many other things they do from, big established companies, even all the way to indie studios and such. Lots of cool things that they're getting their hands on and helping out with there. And just other quick, cool things to acknowledge. I mean, I found this one actually really cool, Konstantin, because, I mean, you have a background and practical knowledge in like management, design, art, and programming. So it's like, those are just some awesome, like, characteristics, skills, whatever to really have. Being involved in what you do, as a project manager working for a marketing agency for games, it's like those are some serious, awesome skill sets to have. So lots of cool stuff there. But outside of that, outside of work, what are a few things that you like to do in your spare time when you're not crushing it with helping all these games?
Yeah, sure thing. I think I do a lot of different things. I mean, some of them are pretty common, but since I'm quite a nerd. I, of course, play video games. It's, I think, the obvious one. But I also into animes and mangas. I like to read and watch them. But since also for me, health is an important part of my life, I also very like to cook for myself. Because, I mean, I like to eat. I really love it. But it's better to cook for yourself and create some nice, healthy meals. And then, of course, I try to be active, doing some fitness on the side, being outside, doing some gardening. I mean, it's not something so special, but I try to spend enough quality time with my cat and train him so he can do some tricks like standing up, giving a paw, which is, I mean, for most people, quite uncommon for cats because, they're harder to train than dogs. But with enough time and patience, it's working.
So that sounds like my kind of cat, because I've always been a dog person, not so much of a cat person. But my thing was, if there was ever a cat that acted like a dog, and I have met my fair share, that would be my favorite kind of cat. So it sounds like you have my ideal cat that I would gladly welcome in my home. Not necessarily your cat, but I mean, I still would, but you know what I mean.
But yeah, I understand that he's like also fetching the ball. He has like one little ball I can throw, and then he's bringing it to myself, and then I just kind of keep on doing. He has this strange ritual when I'm cleaning the dishes that he's bringing the ball to the kitchen. Like he knows that I can pause the dishes, throw the ball, and then start cleaning again. And then after some time, he's bringing it back, and then just rinse and repeat. Yeah,
that's awesome. And quick, random, interesting fact. As much as you can train cats and dogs, apparently rabbits are actually a little bit, I think, smarter or willing or can be trained just as easily, if not easier than those your feline or canine companions. So, I never had the opportunity to do that. Even I owned rabbits in the past, but no, it's a pretty cool thing. But anyways, that's awesome. Love that your cat is so engaging and fun and everything else, like a dog. Sorry,
that's true. I love dogs too, and I mean, I think I love every animal.
Yeah,
I wanted, as I lived with my parents, always some kind of pet. The best I could get was fishes, and I think everyone knows if you get fish as a kid, it's quite boring. So I'm happy that I finally got a cat, and now I can enjoy the happy sides of being a pet owner. I mean, yeah, they're also quite a handful, but we still love them.
Yes. They're awesome. Yep. All right. We digress here. Sorry. I mean, I think that it is going to happen sometimes when we talk about pets. But that being said, appreciate you sharing a little bit more about what you do in your spare time and all the cool training that you give your cat. But that said, I want to get to know a little bit more about you by having you go through the Q Box round. So these are just some quick random questions that we're going to just shoot right at you. And are you ready?
I hope so.
Hope so.
Let's do it.
All right, there we go. Excuse me. What's the most common mistake you see studios make in the industry with their brands?
I think there are two things, especially. One a bit more common, and I think more maybe also quite controversial, is chasing trends or also especially movements which don't align with the brand. So it's not like they don't full-heartedly do or stand behind this trend, be it political, be it ecological, be it whatever it be. Even some some TikTok trends, if you just do it for the sake of reach and reaching an audience, you just want, I mean, in the end, maybe just sell your product. I think currently we see a lot of backlash happening there, that there's some backpedaling, and then there's criticism from both sides, from every side. So I think this is one thing which should be avoided. Just stay true to your heart, stay true to your brand. That's very important, I think. And another thing, and this is more relevant currently in the games industry, is overpromising, or maybe also fake it till you make it, which you see with games where in the AAA scene, but also in the indie scene, where the marketing, especially, the material which is shown, is promising something very special, or maybe also only showing aspects of the game which are very polished and interesting, but it's not the whole game experience. And then the game is released, and then you get the bad reviews. And I think one very current, how current is it? But let's, as an example, Forspoken. This was something many people looked forward to it, and after that, the game kind of flopped. The studio needed to be closed. It's a sad thing, but I think that there are some decision makers who, they should know how the current state of the game is look like, and still they try to create this dream castle, with the mind of, okay, you know what, we're just going to sell the game and maybe we're going to improve it afterwards, or maybe not. In the end, we just want to get the money. And that's, I think, a very bad strategy overall. It doesn't serve a long-term mission. And not only with Forspoken, I saw just today a Souls-like game, which was very trending on TikTok. Sadly, I forgot the name. It's also medieval and it has very nice monster design, very beautiful environment. But in the end, the environment is beautiful but pretty empty. The monster design is nice, but the combat system is sluggish and slow. And so I mean, I'm sure they play tested the game and I'm sure they got feedback how to improve it, but they still decided, you know what, we're gonna ride the wave, we're gonna promote the game very hard instead of maybe deciding, okay, you know what, maybe we should take some more time to develop the game. Maybe instead of investing more resources into marketing, just postpone the game a bit and invest in developing just a better experience. I think that would make a lot of more gamers and fellow developers just more happy.
Yeah, no, it makes sense, and it's interesting. All those two main points that they said it sounds like it can really get boiled down and distilled into like intent, like leading with that right intent, you know, and it's so easy to go off a little bit, get into the weeds and everything else. So good points there. Okay, here's the other one. What's one habit you do to keep a clear and healthy mind?
Okay, if it needs to be one habit, I think it's accepting my mistakes I do and the areas I lack, to accept them and strive for improvement, but little by little. So for myself, I think I learned just some years ago how important communication is, how important communication skills are. And I'm still not a master in it, but, I try to improve it little by little. And I think just take whatever you like, whatever topic it is, whatever, is it like a skill for your job, or maybe it's just a personal skill, to get this feeling of accomplishment and improvement just gives such a mental boost, which helps in every aspect of life. Just to having a good mood will just have a positive impact in everything you do in the day.
Yeah, I mean,
and I think.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, embracing mistakes or failures or however you want to label it can make all the difference in the world in how you proceed and improve and everything else.
Yeah, everyone makes mistakes, and instead of getting down, losing the motivation, try to analyze the situation, try to find out, okay, why did this mistake happen? What can I do to change it? Even if there's something so stupid as, let's say, maybe I would be unfortunate and wouldn't get the chance to be part of the games industry. I'm very thankful for that, but let's say this wouldn't have happened for some reason, and I needed to still make money. Living costs money. So instead of there are two approaches. Either I try to analyze the situation and see what mistakes I made, how can I improve to get a job in the games industry, or maybe also accepting the mistake that trying to forcefully engage, try to get into the games industry was a mistake, and it's not like giving up finding your passion or just a good job. You can maybe look, it's not like I only do games. In the past, maybe I would have, choosing a career as a cook, or maybe even working with cats, training cats, something like that. I think it's keeping positive, accepting that you make a mistake, and try to make the best out of it. Always just little by little. In the end, after a year, after 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, you will look back at it and see how much of good things still happened because you never gave up to strive for something better.
Absolutely love it. All right. Last one, staple here on the show. What game are you playing now?
I think I play multiple games, but I would say right now I play 2. It's Persona 4.
Oh, okay.
The Gold Week version on the PC. I played the PlayStation 2 version way back in the past, where my English skills were so bad that I restarted the game multiple times over many years and never finished it. So after seeing it on Steam on sale, I was like, now I'm gonna do it, and I'm further than never before. I'm very sure that I'm gonna finish it. So that's a thing. Another thing, because it's I love this game. I just wanted to use your podcast to share the name. It's Enderal, The Forgotten Stories. It's a total conversion mod for Skyrim. So yeah,
Ah.
guys, Skyrim is back. I know it's never gonna die, but for everyone who has a PC version of Skyrim, the special edition, I think, so the bit newer one, look at Steam for Enderal. It's free. You don't even need some complex mod downloading thing because it's on Steam. It's connecting with your Skyrim version on Steam too, and play it. It's a wonderful game, in my opinion, way better than Skyrim.
Uh-oh.
It's yes, I know.
That's a big claim right there.
It's a big claim, but I just want to see somebody who wants to discuss with me that Skyrim is better. I think Enderal is doing so many things just smarter, better, more interesting, be it the storytelling, be it the overall leveling system, the narrative. It's just beautiful. So yeah, play it, please.
All right.
It's wonderful.
I may have to check it out because I have 2 copies of Skyrim on a PS3 and a PS4. So might
I
be
think
worth.
that you need the PC version, sadly.
Okay.
Maybe I'm not sure if I know Skyrim has like mod access for PlayStation.
Yes.
You have the possibility. Maybe they also did a PlayStation version. I'm not sure.
Well, anyways, sounds like it's worth checking out. And
it
fall is coming up, and that's like my go-to game every fall, just to relax and play that. Anyways, good game list there, and can't thank you enough for sharing such really great insight in the Q-Box round. But now let's get into the meat of our conversation today, because this is going to be a fun one. I'm not going to lie, folks. We might digress a little bit here because there's just so many things that we're going to probably talk about, uncover, whatever. And that is unlocking your indie studio advantage over AAA giants. So really interesting conversation here. And, pre-interview, pre-now, we're going on so many different tangents, really. So at least we boiled it down. So because there's so many areas here that I think that it's just so many cool things. But let's start by kicking it off with, why do you think so many devs and studios try to emulate AAA studios and their projects, especially when they're not structured similarly or have the same resources?
I think I have like 3 ideas. I think the first one is just that you're a fan of the IP, or you're part of the fan base of the community of a special game. Let's say you're a very big Dark Souls fan and you want to create just the same wonderful experience, and just and then the scope creep is happening because you realize that it's not only the battle system, which is very complex, but also the environment, which is very cleverly made, and the narrative, the feeling, even the music. So I think this is one part. You're just such a fan. You want to reach this. You want to give maybe also your community, your fans of your game, the same feeling you get when playing this AAA beasts. And you just want to also get part of this magic, this essence. I think that this is also a thing where the reality check is, disappearing a bit. So yeah, that's one thing. Then the second one, that's a pretty basic one. They see that AAA studios have big success with some titles, and they just want a piece of the cake. They just want to see, oh, you know what? If they can do it, why shouldn't I be able to do it? I'm also so smart, and I'm such a good dev, and I'm sure I can do it better than them, or even at least on the same level. And then again, it's just the surface analysis. If you try to dissect the game, reverse engineer it, it's always such a complex thing. There's a reason why AAA studios have so many team members. It's not because they, just sitting there having a good time. They're working, and yeah, there's a reason why they have such a big success. And I think the third one, I think it's also because AAA games are more mainstream, and more people are playing it, more people are talking about it. There are more, you know, community generate as so user generated content, cosplays, animations, artworks that you think, oh, this is so great. There are so many people who talk about it. If there are so many people, then why shouldn't I be able to at least get some percentage out of it? And I think that's a big, it's a trap. To think that you can reach the same audience as in, let's say, a Call of Duty. A Call of Duty is very popular because there are a lot of casual players who only play. They are not hardcore gamers, in my opinion. They play maybe, let's say, Call of Duty and FIFA. That's very popular games in Germany, let's say. And they play it a lot. They play it like every day, multiple hours, even so. But they never play other games. And then to think that, oh, if they invest so much money, so much time into this game, if I'm going to create something similar, I'm sure then if I at least get 10% of the casual audience, that would be enough. And yeah, it's pretty hard to reach them because yeah, I think we probably will talk about it in some other points, but you need a lot of resources and a lot of budget to reach this casual audience. And I think this is also why many people think, oh yeah, AAA games, that would be great to make, but in the end, maybe it's not working out so well.
Yeah. So it's interesting because I think it really comes, those 3 points are great ones, but it really comes down to like, hey, kind of following the success. And then upon doing so, you realize, oh, there's a bit of a scope creep. Because like you said, there's multiple teams and people working on these big projects. And then last but not least, I mean, they're so prominent. And by being just having this level of prominence, you have, they tend to be a little bit more influential in terms of, oh, it's more top of mind. I hear people talking about it. And now next thing you know, it just really influencing decisions you're making, but not necessarily looking at the bigger picture of like, hey, what do these teams consist of? What their resource, all these other things and stuff. So really great points there. So knowing that and kind of analyzing these things a little bit, let's talk a little bit about what indies can learn from AAA, because I think you started outlining a few right there. And so to start, I mean, again, there's so many things, but I think what's most important, let's drill it down to like the core, right? So what would you say are the core aspects let's look at things from an internal perspective, okay? What would you say are the core aspects of internal operations that you think indie studios may lack compared to AAA?
I think a big thing is just structure I think it's just structure and routine. I see a lot of, I mean, it's also maybe the magic of indies, just going a bit rogue, doing crazy stuff, just jumping from one thing to another. But in the end, you will probably be less efficient if you and just less resourceful if you lose the overview. Let's say you're a solo dev, and today you're more in the mood, instead of what you planned to further flesh out the battle system, you just decided, you know what, I want to create something more fun. I just want to create this quirky little thing, let's say destructible barrels. And it should look awesome because every plank should be like a separate object. I mean, there are time and place for such a thing because it can help to boost motivation in the long run. But I think there's also it's very easily to lose track of it and be lost in such smaller things. So I think the structure in the production, this plan you can have. And of course, if you're working in a team, especially if you then want to add new team members, you need good documentation and a good onboarding process. And I think there are also indie studios who are liking that, or maybe don't think about it so much because they're maybe in some kind of a startup mindset where everything is created on the fly, and yeah, we will work on that then if we need that. But if you hire someone and then they're in the team and they want to create it's a new artist and they want to create the graphics and there's no art bible or style guide, they also then again you will lose resources because they will create things which after reviewing them you will say, oh, but they are not aligned with the current art style we wanted to do. Now we have to rework the whole assets you created the last week. So I think this is also very important to, even though it's like the unsexy part of game development,
right?
Creating documents, writing things down, doing things which are not essentially be part of the game, but are essential for the creation of the game. I think these are things we can learn from AAA studios because they always grow their teams. They have big teams, and there's very important that everyone has the same vision, the same style, and such documents, but also real leading roles are important for that. And the last part, but I think that's not so important, it's legal topics. I think it's also very important to just take your time to do everything you need to cover the legal aspects of game development. Even though maybe you don't want to, in the end, it could be a fatal error if you don't watch out for that.
Yeah. And, we hear sometimes those horror stories, if you will, that surface a little bit, but I'm sure there's a lot of that aren't really showcased and can still cause some hiccups. Not as important probably in the grand scheme of things, depending on who you are, how big you are, whatever the case may be, but still an important aspect, especially if you're looking at things from a more serious commercial perspective. But real quick too, from your response, I wanted to call out to really interesting things that you mentioned there too, is just like and I see this as being a big one, which is why you mentioned is the motivation versus focus. Because you led with saying structure and routine, and then there's that fine line where it's like, well, it can be boring, but what motivates me and stuff, and it's like that's always I think a challenge a lot of people face is where those two align, or what's that proper balance to have that level of focus and that motivation, and is it possible to combine the two? We're not going to answer those questions today, but these I think are great things to kind of pose in terms of how to address these things and how they derive from actually learning from AAA. And also, too, like just having that defined vision. So important.
Yes. And I think also, celebrating the small successes. If you have an agile development cycle, every new build, you check out how things working. That's great. Do it with the whole team. Just don't let it one guy just cover it and say, yeah, everything is fine, like it's stated in the backlog. Do it with the team. Say who did a good job. Say they did a good job. This is also a very good motivation boost and will be more aimed at the main goal instead of, striving off the path and doing some silly, also maybe a cool thing. But, I think that's also very important.
Yeah, I used to work at an agency where every time they launched a website, they would buy cookies for the entire agency. They just get like lots of cookies. And then one month it got a little crazy because there's lots of websites launched and so many cookies that they didn't really get eaten. But anyways, I mean, those things can be a big deal. So talking about this in terms of internal perspectives and stuff, let's look at things a little bit differently from, like monetization side of things, right? So like what ways do you think indie studios could benefit from, learning about, I guess, either business or monetization models used at the AAA level?
Yeah. I think what's very good is that you can learn from AAA studios and their projects what works and what doesn't work because they do it in such a big scale. It's like a study, The study has much more value the bigger the test group is. And AAA studios have the biggest audience most of the time. So it's a very great thing to see maybe what kind of monetization model is working. I mean, currently there's the trend with hybrid monetization that such things work very well. But of course, hybrid means it depends what you combine. And maybe you can check out what the AAA studios in my genre do. Maybe they did a battle pass. Maybe they never did a battle pass. Could this be an opportunity? Or maybe, let's say, one did and one game did a battle pass, the other didn't. which is more successful? Where's the feedback from the community and the players and the press better, or maybe also their financial report?
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is a thing you can very good learn from AAA studios. Just just indicators. I think also, which many indies maybe do a bit. I mean, not enough, are financial forecasts. I think they're. I mean, to be honest, I think AAA studios also do it a bit too much. It's like you have to balance things out. You have to find. It's not like the middle ground, but somewhere in between these lines. You, like with the level of detail for a financial forecast, just to see, okay, does it make sense to create such a game with such a modernization on this platform? Let's say mobile. Does it make sense to make a full price title, or should we make a freemium game? Or maybe should we do something completely different? And then just to see what kind of financial forecast you get. And of course, check it with the costs of your studio, of your team. Can you keep your studio running with that? It's very important, instead of just going blindly into something and just believe it. I think this is also one of the big reasons why many indie studios just fail. There's like this common thing: the first project, it flops, and then you know what? Just fuck it. It's gone. We just don't. We aren't great game developers. It didn't work. So yeah, boom. And I think that you could maybe, even if you made a financial forecast and created some scenarios, and then you have the scenario where the game flops so hard, you can at least create like a fallback plan, or maybe even just be ready for such a scenario, to say then again, okay, if this scenario is happening, will we keep going developing? Or if not, at least the team members can be ready for that and don't be, lost and standing in the rain if the game's not working. And I think the last thing I would say is also to see how the community reacts to specific business or monetization decisions. And I think a great example are with the game War Thunder. I'm not sure if you have seen it.
I have not.
What happened? Oh, it's great. Everyone else, just look at Steam and look at the reviews. The graph is unbelievable negative. So it's just a steep fall, because they made very drastic monetization decisions. And also, let's say, to boil it down, it just got more pay to win. I think it's more complex, but I just have some surface information.
Yeah.
Yes, right, to simplify it. But the community reacted so harshly. It's really wild. Just everyone, go to Steam right now if you have the time. Just check out War Thunder. Go to reviews, and I haven't seen something similar in my life. It's crazy, and this shows very great. You can learn from that. That maybe such drastic decisions hurt your game in the long run, because yes, maybe you need to generate more money because you want to grow, but if you, because of this decision, lose your community, your players, then in the end your total revenue is going to be less than before. So yeah, watch out for that.
So on that note, I think it's important, because you led in with saying basically, hey, if you look at these other titles, games, whatever, from an analytical approach, there's a lot of information that can be revealed in terms of what may be or may not be applicable to your title. And on the same vein of the example you provided, I think a classic one we can all recall pretty easily is with, Battlefront 2. Big IP, everybody knows Star Wars. And if I remember correctly, because of it did bad because of all the microtransactions that were associated with it. But I think part of the reason for those decisions was they were so analytical and analyzed all the user behavior, the player behavior in terms of from a transactional standpoint, and all the data led to them deciding that, hey, players want more microtransactions because they have been voting with their wallets. Therefore, we have the data to support our decision to doing more microtransactions. But then the result couldn't have been further from the truth. So I think having that level, like you said, understanding your community and knowing them, and that's why communities can be just as important as these analytical aspects or how things are structured, because that can give you enough intuition to determine, hey, the data says this, but then if we lead too much with the data and without that pulse on the community, is that ultimately going to create a negative experience? And unfortunately, that's what happened with, Battlefront.
Yes, yes, and I agree. And I think the most important thing right there, if you decide to change your monetization model, or maybe you're just unsure how the community will react to it, but you want to take the risk, I think one very important aspect is to be transparent, just to keep the community in the clear. If they say they don't like it, they want to things change back, try to explain the decision. Players are not stupid animals; they are human too. And everyone understands that you need to make money to keep the studio running, and if you make the decision that you say, we need to improve our revenue, but we also want to give the players some very cool content to enjoy, I think this will create a better result in the end instead of just keeping it quiet. Also, a current example I would say is Darktide, the Warhammer game. Has also a similar thing happening where, just to boil it down, the monetization aspects of the game were prioritized instead of gameplay promises. And then there was a lot of radio silence happening. The community got really mad. And then there were one time the community manager changed, and the new one was very transparent. And the resonance from the community was really, really great. They just got hopes again. They thought, oh, nice, now we can finally understand what is happening. They wanted to keep playing the game, even though some promises weren't kept. And then again, radio silence. In a way, it's better than before, but still. And now again, this is this frustration. So yeah, if you try also to monetize, keep your community in mind and be transparent.
Right.
I think that's the best thing to do.
Transparency, setting those expectations, all important things. Before we move on real quick, I do want to call out though, because I think this gets, like you said, glazed over, not thought about way too often, especially on an indie level, is those financial forecasts or statements. Because as you started to outline, the reality simply is, especially if it's your first or even few titles created, without that forecast, without that business understanding of what's coming in, what's going out, that can really create a lot of trouble. Especially if let's say your next title, let's say if each game is slowly funding the next project, right? And that runway goes away because of that game, let's say, failed or something down the road. There's a lot at stake there that can't be flipped or turned. So that financial so as much as it is for planning and market research and all that other stuff with making sure you're doing your best that's going to be a viable product, at the same time, if you don't have that a certain runway, cash flow, whatever the case may be, and that's all revealed in these like financial statements or forecasts, that can really make all the difference and not sideblind you too. So I love that you called that out, because I don't think those things are done enough. And again, like you said, they don't have to be super detailed like AAA does, but just have an understanding of, basic, statements. So that way, like, how can you support your team and all these other very important decisions that need to happen to kind of keep things on and moving forward.
Yes. I think in the end, if you're an indie developer, especially if you're in the lead position or solo dev, you're not only an indie developer, you're also a businessman. You have a company, you have a team. You need to. It's also, again, I think it's the unsexy part of game development, but it's essential and shouldn't be glossed over.
So in light of that, because we kind of talked into it a little bit, would you market analysis, long-term planning, these are all imperative for AAA studios. So like, what ways do you think indies can adapt some of these practices into their own studios, like kind of planning ahead? We talked a little bit about financial statements, but like, and forecasting, but like, what are some other things that can help from a planning perspective to really, make sure indies are a little bit more on top of their game, so to speak?
I think let me formulate. I think what can help is again to look what are AAA studios doing and try to learn from it. Let's say if it's the let's say the battle royale trend. I think that's a great example. Many AAA studios tried to get into this market, try to be one of the big players, because there's where the cash is. I think that's one of the main drivers for such decisions. And they make also like this market, the analysis, the market analysis, and they see, oh, this is like the Battle Royale games are one of the most live streamed games on Twitch, and they have such great financial, like Epic Games with Fortnite. That's like their main revenue bringer, and then they make the decisions to create Battle Royale games, and then you see most of the time that they flop because it's a very deep red ocean. It's very there's a strong fight happening there. You it's not like let's say with indie games, let's say with Metroidvania games where you can share the community. Like I finished Hollow Knight, now I can play Blasphemous. No, if you play Fortnite or Apex Legends, you play it every day, and there's a high probability that I won't play your Battle Royale game because I already have my Battle Royale games. So if you see what trends big studios are following, try to see if that's applicable to you and if it's a good thing or a bad thing. I think that's one thing. And I think another one, which is very also glossed over, are IPs. So we see big AAA studios with big IP games, let's say with Star Wars just recently. Just many, I'm sure there are many Star Wars fans, and they try to create indie games which are similar to Star Wars, but not too much because they want to respect the legal part of the IP. But why not try to communicate or try to reach out to these studios? I think there's one story. I read it in the past, I think 2 years ago. It's a studio who wanted to create a Mickey Mouse video game. And it was from an indie studio. It's not like Disney hired them. They pitched a concept to Disney, and Disney was really okay with that and allowed them. I mean, of course, a deal needed to be created, but just to create a Disney Mickey Mouse game, it's such a great starting point marketing-wise to reach a big audience. I'm not sure if it's like this current one, some like Mickey Mouse, something with an island, a game which should soon come out. I'm not sure if it's the same studio, but that's the thing. I would say AAA studios are trying to create big IP games. And I think indie studios, if you have a good track record or you're very convincing, just try to do it. Try to pitch it. Don't be scared. I think this is also one thing. If you see that there's like an IP which didn't get a great video game, but you think there's a very big audience for that, try to create like a high concept, maybe a quick vertical slice, a prototype, just to show if you pitch that your idea is good and your research is sound. So I think this is also a thing which indie studios can try and learn from AAA studios. I don't believe that only AAA studios have like the right to create games with big IPs behind it.
Yeah.
And I think also one last thing. I think also brand collaborations is a thing which is ignored by also indie studios, probably because they don't believe in themselves so much. Even though maybe it's a brand collaboration on a small scale. Even let's say you have like a local sushi restaurant. Maybe they have multiple locations, and you can create and your game is about managing a sushi restaurant. Why not create a small brand collaboration with them? Maybe it's just small scale, maybe locally, but it creates, first of all, you just took the opportunity. You didn't ignore it. It's always better to take the opportunity instead of just, passing it, let it pass by. And you can also, because you're an indie, reuse it very well. If you, let's say, make a local event in this restaurant, you can film it and upload it to social media, or maybe invite some community members for a free meal because they playtested your game. This will create a very special bond, create long-time fans, which will be like ambassadors for your game, for your studio. And then, of course, everyone will laugh on social media, such a cool success story that an indie game made an event in a sushi restaurant. I mean, I haven't heard of such a thing,
Right.
and I don't understand why. Because I mean, yeah, why not?
Well, okay.
What's valuable?
And I know you have experience with like influencer and PR and such too, but I mean, just think of the newsworthy aspect that this could carry, and also and plus, you know, players really like those little attention to detail type things where if something's revealed and you're like, oh wait, this is an actual place, that's in game, or it's said that, and people are like, wait a minute, it makes them think, and then they like maybe stop playing the game for a moment, look up online, and like, yeah, this is a legit sushi restaurant, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and plus that is such a compelling story, I think, for a lot of news outlets, for a lot of like influencers to be like, okay, you're not going to believe this, everyone, but these guys, they partnered up with this local sushi, you know, like think of all the stories, a different approach. I mean, and that could be very strategic. And again, that's kind of more of a planning cool thing to do. But also, let's go back real quick. You talked about IP, right?
Yes.
And I think that was really interesting in terms of pitching to, you know, what's it called? Existing IPs, wherever they may exist in whatever form of media, let's just say, right? So there's that, because, you know, time and time again, I kind of think about those things too. And it's like, have people consider those things, and maybe it might be a shift in their model and how they operate as a company, a business and everything too, understandably so. But that said, there's still a lot of opportunities. But what about original IPs, meaning the IPs studios are creating, that might not come with as much leverage or support that you may have with an existing IP, right? There might be obviously more risk, but you think there's other areas that, you know, studios could explore there too. Because let's face it, if you look at most indie studios, they don't necessarily have an IP that they're looking at it from a perspective of really growing or expanding.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I think so too. I think they're you have a fan base, you can build up on it. I mean, let's say you have, I mean, it's like, it's a basic thing, merchandise. So if you have an IP and you want to give your community something back, you create merchandise. But what I have seen so far, many studios only do merchandise on a for the Kickstarter campaign, let's say an example. And after that, they stop and don't have anything else to offer. But why not? You can try to build the IP to foster your community, and it's a great strategy for also the long-term success for your studio, because it's not like you only do these things for the success of one game. You do it for the popularity of your brand, to as again also circling back to how I keep a healthy mind. Small improvements, step by step, building on it, building on your IP. And again, let's say if you have a popular IP and then you release the second game, how cool is it if you include your IP of the first game in your second game in a way? That's always a small, cool Easter egg. Let's say if I would be a fan of a specific studio, and then they have like one game I really like, one IP, and then the second game, a different IP I also very like, and then they just are crazy and create a crossover, I think, where both IPs are sharing one game. That would be so crazy. Also, again, very newsworthy, I think. And why? Again, I think most of the time why people don't try it is because they fear failure. They think, no, why should I even try? I'm sure it's not going to work. You never find out if you don't try it.
Right. And I mean, there's just, I think there's a lot of concern, fear, unknowns about exploring your own IP a little bit further, or really envisioning what that could entail. But really, it just allows for a lot more like brand strengthening, community strengthening, a lot more opportunities in those areas than if you were just simply to have a vast portfolio. Because then it's almost like taking a publisher mindset, even if you don't, if you just plan to self-publish your own, you know, titles and such, opposed to, I don't know, a brand perspective. So it's just a different way of thinking. It's not wrong
Yeah.
either way, but I think
Yeah.
there's a lot to be potentially gained if focusing more on an IP, because it's like, hey, you're creating these assets. There's no reason why you shouldn't create these assets and find creative ways to compound the potential results and benefits from those things either. So
again, I think a great example again to go back to AAA studios, they always like to do some things like include a skin from a past game in a new one. With, let's say it's a publisher or maybe a dev, and I don't know. I think one example would be, if I remember correctly, it was in some armor I think it was Mass Effect 2, and I'm not sure, but I think it was like an armor piece from a fantasy game, which was also like included in Mass Effect 2. I mean, again, they combined the IPs. It's such a cool thing. The people, I mean, it's just like, a wink to the community, and they love it. And yeah, why not think the same way and just, implement it in your indie game?
hey, everybody, Andrew here. And I just wanted to say thanks for tuning in this week to part 1 of this episode, where we're talking about unlocking your indie studio advantage over AAA giants. Next week, you can tune in to get the second part of this episode, where we're going to be discussing the advantages indies have over AAA. So lots of information, insight that we're going to share. Konstantin and I discuss what these advantages are, how you can leverage them, and do so many different things to really power up your studio. So thanks again for listening, and tune in next week to get part 2 of this episode.